You're not kidding. They can be very, very, very traumatic accidents if you happen to get into a four-wheeler accident. And you know, a lot of it comes down to the gear you're wearing. If you're wearing the correct gear, a lot of times you won't see those severe injuries. I'm joined now by Jeff Waterman. He's the owner out here at Outdoor Power. What are the major pieces of equipment you need to have on to keep safe?
Well, you know, the number one thing is helmets. Helmets are always a must whenever you're riding. But any of you know, your gloves, long sleeve shirts, chest protectors, even like the boots down here that they wear to protect your ankles, things like that. Like this unit even comes with a tether, so if you do fall off, at least it'll shut the unit off so it don't run over you. Okay. It will. But helmets are most definitely the number one thing. And
one of the biggest examples of that is this helmet you have right here, worn by a child here in the tri-states, a preteen basically, someone who hit a rock while they were on a ride, and you can see how this rock gouged into the helmet and really saved this child from a very serious traumatic brain injury or possibly even death. This tells the tale. You talk about being from the show me state. Show me, Chad, this is the demonstration you need to keep safe. Now, I do want to throw in this. I know a lot of people have four-wheeler accidents. One of them, in fact, was my husband. Before we were married, when we were dating, if you just show that video, he got into a very major four-wheeler accident, but thankfully he was wearing his helmet, his chest protector, his boots, everything that he was supposed to, that we've been talking about, everything he was supposed to be wearing. The only bone he broke on his body was his femur, of course, the hardest bone to break in your body, when he hit the handlebars with his legs. This is, they told us at the ER actually that if he hadn't been wearing his helmet, his chest protector, he might have died. He might have had a severe injury that may have debilitated him for the rest of his life. I'm joined now by Elizabeth Huenfeld. She's actually an RN at the Blessing Emergency Room. We're talking about all of these serious injuries, all of this important safety equipment. When you look at someone who has been through an accident like that, what kind of things are you seeing coming into your ER?
About 17% of the overall traumas that we had last year were actually ATV related. The things that we're seeing, of course, are head injuries ranging anywhere from a concussion to a brain bleed, which is debilitating and very life-threatening. We also see abdominal trauma, and then breaking the femur, as you said, actually tells me how bad the accident was and how lucky he was, because that's a very hard bone to break.
Well, and especially since, I mean, you look at the helmet, you look at the chest protectors after these accidents, they tell the tale. So your best advice from an RN to your family this morning is this?
Is to wear your equipment, take an operator's course, and don't do anything that's above your skill level. And also make sure that you're riding an ATV that fits you.
Wonderful. You heard it here. That advice straight from the mouths of medical professionals this morning. Back to you guys in the studio.
Well, Melissa's husband had the what'd you say, the femur? I had the tibia and the fibula, so I was down low on the leg.
Guys with your legs.
Yeah, well, you know, you need them. They're important. The number of four-wheeling accidents hit their high during the summer months like this when most people are outside.
Those accidents can be very traumatic and even deadly in some cases. KHQA's Melissa Shriver is at Outdoor Power in Quincy this morning to let you know how to be safe. Good morning, Mel.
Hey, good morning, guys. We are telling you all about ATV safety this summer. Now, you may not know this, but actually ATV accidents hit their peak during the summer months, especially right here in the tri-states, with folks being out and about all over the place this summer. I'm joined now by Jeff Waterman. He's the owner here at Outdoor Power, and he's just going to tell us a little bit about, we've been talking about helmets, we've been talking about chest protectors, the equipment that you need on your body in order to stay safe, but it's really about knowing the machine and having the machine matched to you, is it not?
Yeah, that's true. You know, whether, you know, depending on your age and things, but Consumer Product Safety Council has recommendations for ATVs for children. You know, no one under the age of 6 years old. If you're 6 years old, you can ride a 50 or a 70
CC, right?
CC, yep, CC. And then, of course, if you're 13 and older, you can ride a 90. And then once you do become 16, they have adult-size units in for somebody that's 16 and older.
Okay, we've also been talking about, you know, of course, having the safety equipment, but using your common sense, not riding double. These machines are not made for double most of the time.
No, actually, most of the accidents we hear about, and I'm sure that they see at the hospital, they're riding double on a single-person ATV, no helmets, riding on the roads. These units aren't made to ride on the road. Things like that, riding at night, that kind of stuff. So definitely, them are the biggies that get people in trouble.
Now we talk about a lot about ATV safety, but there's a I guess this one is called a Ranger, but it's a side-by-side. Side-by-sides are actually outselling ATVs these days, so having the right safety harnesses and that type of thing on a side-by-side is important as well.
Yeah, side-by-sides have evolved over the last several years. Yeah, they actually do outsell our ATVs anymore, but they do have a lot more safety features than what your ATV does. You have a full roll cage over top of you, what we call a ROPS. You have nets to keep you in the unit, your hands and legs in the unit, seat belts, things like that. Even so far as, our units even have tilt wheel so that you've got better control of the unit you do have.
Okay, so all sorts of things. You got to remember about these ATVs. They're not designed for two people all the time. Of course, these side-by-sides are designed for two people, but four-wheelers in general, some of them do have room for two, most of them do not. These children are riding on four-wheelers that are a little bit smaller and appropriately sized for them. But that's something you really need to pay attention to when you are looking into getting an ATV. We're joined by Elizabeth Huenfeld. She's an RN at Blessing's emergency room. She says that she sees most of the accidents in the tri-states on ATVs coming in during the summer.
Correct. About 17% of our overall traumas last year were actually ATV related. So I mean, that's a large number considering that usually there's about a 3-month time period when they occur. And most of the ones that I see occur when people aren't wearing the protective gear, or like they said, riding double, children riding a machine that's much too big for them without the protective equipment. We see a lot of head injuries, anything ranging from a concussion, which can have ramifications for several months afterwards, to, really severe debilitating head injuries, spinal cord injuries, abdominal trauma, and of course fractures, which can also be extremely debilitating, especially when it's summertime and you're a kid and now you have 2 arm fractures to worry about.
Well, those are the major injuries that we're talking about this morning, and they can be prevented. Coming up in the next half hour, we're going to talk about helmet safety and how important it is to protect that noggin of yours.
All right, we will see in the next half hour. Also important these days to protect.
We're talking safety, as you talked about, and obviously machines like this one pack a lot of power. And so that means when you're heading out and about this summer, they're very fun. I love ATV riding. In fact, it's one of my big hobbies. But when you go out, you have to do it safely. I'm joined by Jeff Waterman. He's a co-owner here at Outdoor Power in Quincy. What are some of the big things that people need to have, the safety gear that they have to stay safe this summer?
Well, we highly recommend, like helmets, your chest protectors, jerseys with long sleeve shirts, goggles, gloves, things like that, so that, if a tree branch hits you, if you do fall off a unit, things like that, you are protected.
Okay, so we're looking at our models here. This is Grayson and McKenna or Melina? Melina, sorry about that. Now, our models here are kind of modeling what you need to have to stay safe this summer. We've got the chest protector. What does this protect? Obviously, it's kind of in the name, but what does it protect?
Yeah, it's going to protect your chest, your back area, your shoulders, your arms here. If something hits you, if you do fall off, they're made out of high-impact plastic. They are, so something can't penetrate them, things like that. And, of course, the helmet and stuff here is going to protect your head, of course. We've got the goggles that you can wear for eye protection, things like that, all the way down, your long sleeve shirts, even, you can get into the riding boots, things like that to protect your feet and ankles. We generally don't recommend like tennis shoes, anything like that, because you have no ankle protection there.
Yeah, well, and that's something that people think about whenever you're riding an ATV, you're kind of getting jostled on your feet, so something to protect your ankles, and absorbing that impact is a big deal.
Yeah, exactly. And you don't really have to go with a, super fancy pair of boots like this. Even if you just have some type of work shoes that have over the ankle protection, things like that, that's the big key thing. So, you don't have to spend an arm and a leg doing it. You can be however fancy or however plain you want, just as long as you have some type of protection.
And I want to show this helmet. We've been talking about this helmet this morning. We talk about the importance of protecting your head. This helmet was actually worn by a child right here in the tri-states.
Yeah, this happened probably 7 or 8 years ago. At the time, he was probably 8 or 10 years old, was riding in a creek, actually with his parents. He was, and kind of lost control, fell off the unit, hit his head on a rock. As you can see, a lot of times when I do this child safety days, things like that for 4-H, I'll take this helmet along and take a hammer with me and just beat this helmet all up, and it don't even make a mark on it, yet this one has a hole in it, so you can imagine what it would have done if you hadn't had it on.
Wow, and right to the temple, really, the region.
Exactly, yeah.
Well, to tell us a little bit more about what kind of injuries are being seen in the tri-states, of course, the most injuries in the tri-states happen in the summer on ATVs. This is Elizabeth Huenfeld. She's a RN at the Blessing emergency room. So she definitely sees everything that comes in. What type of injuries, when you walk into a room and you see someone, what kind of injuries do they have when they are injured in an ATV accident?
A lot of times we see head injuries, of course. We see a lot of abdominal organ trauma. Of course, broken bones would be the major thing. But the more serious injuries, of course, spinal cord injuries. Whenever we hear that an ATV accident is coming in, we immediately suspect head injury, neck injury, back injury. We're just going to assume the worst. And a lot of times, unfortunately, that is the case.
We talked about that helmet, the chest protector, that type of thing. If someone was wearing something like this, would you be seeing these massive injuries?
Absolutely not. I mean, of course, you would still see them occasionally, but most of the people that we see that come in to the ER with extensive trauma are not wearing the protection at all. I rarely see somebody come into the ER who has worn all of this protective gear.
So your best advice?
My best advice is absolutely the protective gear, and also take an operator class to learn how to operate these properly, so that you can get a good footing in the ground to operate the four-wheelers.
Well, you heard it here, the expert advice. Make sure you have the right protective gear for this summer. Have fun this summer, but do it safely.